Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to a new video. Today I'm gonna show you 5 tips to make your techno groovier. So just before to start the tutorial, remember that these tips are just guidelines. You don't need to use them all the time for all the track. It always depends the situation. But if one day you feel like your track is missing a bit of groove, you can try one of these. But remember, don't try to fix something that is not broken. Alright, so let's jump into Ableton. Alright, so this is the project that I used to show you all the tips, and it sounds like this. So very Hardgroove style, but obviously these tips will apply for any genre of techno. And the first tips I want to give you, it's about your bass line and especially the MIDI pattern. So here it's a MIDI pattern, and there is one thing I often forget to look is the note length. So usually I will draw and each note will finish when the other one starts, and there is nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it works, but sometimes as well, if you think about shortening the note even like just a little bit before, it will add a big difference. I'm gonna switch between these two clips where you see it's the same pattern but just the notes are shortened. Okay, and this. Now we need to put this into a context of the track to really hear. Maybe just first with just the kick and bass. So this is with the long note, and this is with the short note, and way much more groovier. And there is another thing actually you need to be careful as well, is for example the release of your synth. So I'm gonna play with the release and you're gonna see how it's changed the feelings. You see, with the longer release, it almost became like the legato version with the long note. But even we're gonna go the other way around and kind of shorten it. You can even shorten it to get even a different groove. So again, there is no wrong, right way to do it. It's not like because you make a shorter release, it's better than the longer or the medium. Each of these possibilities are good, depending on the track. All right, next tips, it's about hats and about choking. So if you're like me, using a lot of sample and put them in a drum rack, I often forget about this choking. But if you use a classic 909 or even the 909 core kit, this choke is enabled by default. And basically, choke kind of replicate how a normal Charlie will behave. So that means it can be either open or closed, but not in the same time. So which means in your 909 kick, for example, you have your closed hi-hat and your open hat, but they cannot play both in the same time. It's either one or the other. And this is really great because you can use it to create groove. For example, you can have your open hats, which usually have longer tail, and sometimes you can let it open longer, but sometimes you can decide to close it or to shut it with a closed hat. So for example, here, you can hear the closed hi-hat is shutting my open hat. But if I remove it, you hear the difference. The first one were longer, where the second one were cut by the second closed hi-hat. So then after you can create a different pattern and experiment with that. And that usually can add a nice groove. So here it's an example where I use some of my sample. To activate the choke, you need to go in the input output here, and you have choke, and you need to select on the same group, so on the same choke one group. With choke on, it sounds like this, but with choke off, sound like this. Two different type of groove. Doesn't mean one is better than the other again, but I just wanted to show you because it's something we often forget. Another thing which is important with hats is to don't hesitate to play with the velocity. This I often show it, especially if you want to create a driving effect. How to have this kind of crescendo in terms of velocity. So here it's where your kick is playing, and this one is the one offbeat. So the idea is to have the one on the kick the lower and the one offbeat the higher, and that's what's gonna really create a driving effect, and then you can have the one in between at in between velocity. Then obviously you can experiment with. All right, you can have velocity off. It's different type of groove, and again they all work. It's really depend of your track and the energy you wanna give as well. Alright, so this is a kind of tip I will give you if you do Hardgroove Techno or even Industrial Techno. It's top layering or hat layering. It's the idea of taking elements, for example, such as hats or percussion or snare, claps, even all these kind of elements which are kind of percussing but noisy in the same time, and layer them to create a very rich and groovy sound. So this you have to, don't be shy. Sometimes I will go even like 4 or 5 layers to create just like kind of one loop. Here, for example, I use 3 layers. Now, the risk with that is the more layer you will add, the busier your mix will get. Now, you might wonder, how do you get this kind of loop? How do you create them from scratch? Obviously, even creating them from scratch requires some time. You see, for example, this one, it's a mix of hats and clap. This one is more kind of percussion. So how do you recreate this type of loop from scratch if you don't want to use them some from sample packs? Because that's the thing, this kind of loops, you can easily find them in a lot of sample packs. They are usually called top loop or Perc Loop. They are really great. I really like to use them as a lower level, or you can then pitch them and use as a lower level, and they kind of really add texture and groove. So for example, the idea is to take a hats loop or create a hats pattern, and then you're gonna take a Perc Loop, but you're gonna put it at a very low level just to add a bit of texture and groove. And believe me, when you start to do like this with different type of sound and percussion, at the end you get something very rich and nice. Now for percussion, how to create a good percussion loop. It's a little bit like how I was asking me, how do you create a great melody or melody that works all the time? There is no answer. It's all about trial and error. One trick I can give you, for example, is take a Perc Loop, even if it's not a Perc Loop that you like, but what you can do with Ableton, which is cool, is you can right click and convert drums to MIDI track. So what you're gonna get is probably gonna be very different than what you wanted actually. But the great thing about this is that you have a good starting point, because sometimes if you need to start from scratch, you don't really know where to start. And this can be used as a great starting point, and then you can try different things and remove some you like or you don't like. So let me take this MIDI actually to my Perc, because I don't want this default drum kit. And after you can change the loops, you can change the starting point. And yeah, then after I apply a bit of a process, I usually say I like to pitch. I like to use frequency shifter. It's always pitch in the nice way. Overdrive just to make it a bit more crunchy. Delay, add extra groove. This is like conga high, but actually I don't think it was this one, the original sound. Why, this one. And now so now in the very near future, maybe in 1 week or 2 weeks, I will show you how another way to create a top loop like this, very simple. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss this video. All right, another tip that wasn't plain, but for example, when you have send and you like the scent, you like the pattern, but you feel something is off. Sometimes what can help is change the starting point to have a different feeling. You can also just like select your pattern and shift it in a different way. And this works well. Now, one thing that I like to use as well, you can see here, the whole thing is kind of playing the whole groove melody. But what about if this last chord, the last one, we was making it play by another synth. So I'm gonna mute by pressing 0. And then this chord, I want it to be played by another synth. So now I have another synth here, which is different than my first one. And we're gonna do this question and answer things. So I'm just gonna copy the MIDI pattern here. And I'm gonna invert the mute up. And now this one is playing like this. So the answer like this. I might pitch down this one. Now the second thing you can do as well, which sometimes work well, is microshifting. So basically, what does it mean? It means like you take your whole pattern, or just like chord by chord, and you make it play slightly before or slightly after the grid. So this is a tip that you will often hear to make your pattern a bit more human, like humanize your things. But it's great to kind of sometimes accentuate a bit more and to have you not playing slightly before the grid. It's gonna kind of accentuate its syncopated rhythm. Alright, and now we can compare on the grid and off the grid, and we have on the grid which sounds like this. And slightly off the grid. So again, I want to accentuate here, there is no like wrong way. So sometimes it's not going to work, sometimes it's better to be on the grid, sometimes a little bit of grid is going to add groove. But it's something that we often forget to do or think about it, and that can work well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today, guys. Hope you like this video. If you like the sample I used, they are part of my Hardgroove Tools sample pack, and grab it. It's a great way to support me. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon. Bye bye.